Today, we're dealing with modesty. And I want to do that for a couple of reasons. So, the first one is this. It can be a difficult topic, and that is exactly what we're dealing with. So, it sort of fits right there in what we're wanting to do in the Bible study. The second reason is, in conversation, it's sort of come to our attention that we have not really provided any positive teaching on modesty. Like the church has not provided any. None of us have ever preached on it. We've never done a Bible study on it. Of course, we've talked with our wives, and our wives have talked with other people, and that sort of thing has happened. But we have never actually provided a biblical teaching on modesty, and that's somewhat of a problem. We need to do that. We need to provide you all with biblical teaching on certain things. So that's a second reason why we're wanting to do it. And a third one is this, and this is probably the biggest reason why we're wanting to visit this, is, as at least all of you ladies know, except maybe Louise, because you probably weren't there at the time, but in the beginning, earlier days, we had our wives meet with all of you and talk about modesty, and there was provided a sheet that had sort of some guidelines on it. Some were very generic and some were very specific. But the problem was, I think the mindset in regards to that particular conversation that was had, our fear is that over time, the mindset has become more about keep the list rather than a matter of the heart and a matter of trying to be biblical. And what can happen is when a mindset becomes about keeping the list rather than trying to honor God, and there is a difference there, things can become very legalistic. And what we're wanting to do is avoid that. I mean, we don't want legalism in the life of a church. I mean, like I was just praying, we don't want to go beyond what Scripture has to say. We want to just be where Scripture has us to be. And I don't want, and Aaron and Manny don't want, anybody in this church, whether man or woman, to just be doing something to check the box, to keep the list. Well, this says this, and now I got to do this. We want to provide teaching so that the heart is right, the motivation is right, and that there's biblical precedent if we're going to say something that the Bible says it. So that's probably the biggest reason. And we want to make sure the mindset's right. We want to get a good teaching direction so that we can actually practically live that out. All right? So all those things, given that, there are two main New Testament passages on modesty that we're going to spend some time on. Anybody know where these passages are?
1 Timothy 2:9.
Yeah, well, that one's listed there on the front. Okay, so we will look at that. Does anybody know where the other main passage is? Huh? 1 Peter 3, yeah. There may be other passages that you guys might be thinking of that have reference to it. But these are the two main passages that are going to deal with the subject, all right? So 1 Timothy chapter 2, I'm going to just read both of these, and then we're going to go back through, and I really just want this to be, I want to point out to you what is being said in the passages and just try to pull out from them, okay, what does this actually mean, all right? So let's just read both of these first. 1 Timothy chapter 2, we'll start in verse 8. I desire that in every place the men should pray, lifting holy hands without anger or quarreling. Likewise also that women should adorn themselves in respectable apparel with modesty and self-control, not with braided hair and gold or pearls or costly attire, but with what is proper for women, who profess godliness with good works. All right, let's read 1 Peter chapter 3. And as we go through this, if you guys have questions or anything, feel free to ask them. There may be some questions that I'll push to the end because I may deal with them during, but if you do have any questions, feel free to ask them. Okay, so 1 Peter chapter 3, I'm going to start in verse 1. Likewise, wives, be subject to your own husbands, so that even if some do not obey the word, they may be won without a word by the conduct of their wives, when they see your respectful and pure conduct. Do not let your adorning be external, the braiding of hair and the putting on of gold jewelry or the clothing you wear, but let your adorning be the hidden person of the heart, with the imperishable beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which in God's sight is very precious. For this is how the holy women who hoped in God used to adorn themselves, by submitting to their own husbands. As Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord, and you are her children, if you do good and do not fear anything that is frightening. So, let's go back. Let's deal with 1 Timothy chapter 2 first. There's a little more there for us, and then we'll come back over here to 1 Peter. But obviously, as we read these, you notice that in both of them, it is specifically mentioning women. But I want you to recognize that even though they do specifically mention women, most, if not all, of these particular things that we will look at do have application for men. Most of the time, it's the same application. The only problem is sometimes, of course, we think in men, or it may just really be the case that some of the things that are dealt with here are not typically constant problems in the lives of men. But I want you all to recognize that in both of these passages, even though it is primarily focused upon women, that this does have application for men, and we'll see in different ways that it does. All right? So let's see here. Let's just run down the list of what is said. So in 1 Timothy 2, it says, likewise also that women should adorn themselves in respectable apparel with modesty and self-control. All right, pause there for a minute. All right? So we have right out of the gate this idea that a woman, he's talking about her clothing. Obviously he is. When he says a woman is to adorn herself, and then he's going to give all of these things. Like, what should she adorn herself with? What should that be like? So he's talking about clothing. He's talking about what it is that she's wearing, what she's presenting herself like. And so the first thing you get is this: respectable apparel. And I guess most basically what this would mean is that what a woman is wearing should cause her to earn respect, not lose it. That's the idea. If it's respectable apparel, it's something that is giving her respect. It's not something that's taking what should be. She should be respected by others. And if she's wearing something where respect is removed from her, that's a problem. And the fact of the matter is this, brethren. Things like sensuality, things like provocative, that is not respect. Those are not synonyms for respect. Those are different. So when we think about respect, what is respectable apparel? What does it mean for a woman to be respected by her apparel? These are the kind of attributes that would seem to coincide with that. Gracious, reverential, humble, well-mannered, devout. All right? These are the kind of things. When you think of a respectable woman, I mean, that's how I got these synonyms. I just wanted to think, what qualities do I think of if I think respectable woman? Right? And these are the things that I think of. I mean, you want to think of words that hold value. I mean, if you see a woman and she looks graceful, gracious, right? She seems reverent. She seems humble. She seems devout. She seems well-mannered. The idea is that this is what a respectable woman looks like. And a woman's attire ought to have this reality to it. She should be respectable, not sought after. She should be respected. She should be reverenced by her apparel, not sought after for a display of her body. So that's that, respectable apparel. Now there could be obviously more to add in there, but I think that's the idea. When you think of what does a woman look like who would be respected, you think of the qualities that would surround that, all right? Now look at this next one, right? He says, adorn themselves in respectable apparel with modesty. Now, we typically just think modesty is not seductive. Like that's, if we're going to define it, like that's what we think it means, not seductive. But modesty actually means something more than that. So if I was to say to you, Bill Gates drives a 1997 Honda Civic, we would go, oh wow, Bill Gates drives a modest car. Does that make sense? And we would say he drives a modest car because he could drive $1 million car, but instead he drives, the $2,000 car, right? That's the idea of modesty. And so the idea with modesty is that you're hiding away or you're not displaying all that could be displayed, right? So if Bill Gates could drive $1 million car, but he chooses not to drive $1 million car, he is not displaying all that his worth is in his car choice. And the same thing should be brought out here in this idea of modesty. It's not just not seductive. There's something broader to that. And it's this idea of hiding away, not displaying all that could be displayed. Ladies, your bodies ought to be for your spouse alone. That's it. Nobody else. There should be nobody else that your body is for. It should be for your spouse alone. And the same thing for husbands. Men, your body is for your spouse alone. And we should be concerned that both men and women are hiding away their bodies and their beauty and all that they are for their spouses. That it's not on display. Like that's the idea with modesty, that it's hidden away. It's not put out there in the forefront. In this actually, I mean, when we think about this, like I know some of you in here are not married, obviously, but the principle would still hold true. If you're a woman and you're not married, you should be hiding away your body for your future husband. And if you're a man and you're not married, you should be hiding away that for your future wife. But for a moment, if you're a husband, this should be preeminently your desire. It should be preeminently your desire that your wife's body is hidden away for you and for you alone. You should not want the brethren in the church to know what your wife's body looks like. You should not want them to be able to even know what your wife's body looks like. There is a sense in which jealousy is a good thing, right? The Lord is jealous over us. Why? Because we're His. Well, it's good to be jealous about something that is yours. When God is jealous over us, it's proper. And you should have a sense of jealousy towards your wife. You should want her reserved for you. You should want her hidden away for you, not for any other man to be able to look at or be able to see. That should preeminently be your desire. And it should be the same way, wives, towards your husbands. You should want your husband's body hidden away for you. It's not for any other woman in here to see. It's not for any other woman in here to think, oh, wow, okay. That is for you. It's for you to know your husband's body. And not for some other sister in the church to know that. So that's the idea. Modesty is that we are trying to hide away all that could be displayed. And it's not just a hiding away, period. It's a hiding away for the proper place. It's a hiding away for the proper person. For a husband, he should be concerned that his wife's body is hidden away for him, and for a husband, I got those mixed up. For the husband, he should be concerned that his wife's body is hidden away for him. And for the wife, she should be concerned that her husband's body is hidden away from him. Are you guys understanding this? Yes. And listen, when you think about this, this is very Christ-like. What could be more Christ-like other than hidden glory? Right? What does it say in Philippians chapter 2? What did Jesus do? He humbled himself. He emptied himself, took on the form of a servant, right? All the glory that he was, he hid it away. When Jesus walked on this earth, he didn't walk around with shining face and, everybody didn't look at him like, whoa, look at this guy. He looked like everybody else, right? No form or majesty that we should desire him, Isaiah says. This is very Christ-like. This is biblical, brethren, for you to want to hide away all that you are for the proper person and the proper place. So that's the idea, I think, with modesty. And I think embedded in that is the idea there of self-control. Because again, those two things seem to have the same idea, right? Modesty is not putting out everything that could be put out. Self-control is this sort of tapering back or hindering back, all right? Now look at this next one. I've entitled this next category here. I don't know if I wrote it. Did I write it on your guys' sheet? Yes. Okay. So I wrote loudness. I want you to see why I'm saying that. So he says, this is all in connection, right? The woman should adorn herself, respectable apparel, modesty, self-control. Now he's going to give us a negative, not with braided hair and gold or pearls or costly attire, but with what is proper for women who profess godliness with good works. So the idea is this, brethren. Your clothing should not be attention-grabbing. It shouldn't be loud. It shouldn't be boisterous. It shouldn't be making a statement. And the same thing for men. Men, clothing shouldn't be flashy. It shouldn't be something that's drawing attention to yourself. So what we want is for women in their dress to have this sort of gentle, reserved, hidden away for your husband type of clothing. And the same thing vice versa for the man. That it's not flashy. There's not making a statement here. Brethren, if you walk into a room, someone's house, whatever it is, you come in somewhere and you are the first thing that people notice because of your attire or whatever else is on you, whether it's clothing or accessories or whatever. If you are the attention in the room, that is what Paul is trying to say should not be the case. You should not be grabbing attention by your apparel or by your accessories. And this can happen with all kinds of things other than like a t-shirt. So you guys give me some things because I know you have them. This is not something I myself have only experienced. So what are some things that, other than provocative clothing, right? If someone walks in and they're, one of the prostitutes that walks up and down the street comes in our house, right? She will grab a lot of attention because she's wearing provocative clothing. But my point is, there are things here that maybe would not be provocative in the sense that we would normally think about them, but they would be attention grabbing. People are staring at you because of what you have on or whatever. So what are some things that you all have seen, whether in the church or even out in the world, that grab your attention, that take your attention?
Nose rings.
Okay.
Can be kind of distracting a little bit. But
Big old gauges.
Okay.
that should have been my
Big
first
old
one.
gauges.
Big gauges.
Sure.
Gold chains.
Gold chains. Right? I mean, he says here, pearls are costly attire, gold, right?
Comportment, the way one carries oneself.
I don't know what the word comportment means, but yes.
How you act. If you're,
Okay.
You could be very modest.
Sure.
The way you walk, the way you.
Sure. Yeah, so we will deal with that a little more in some detail. Loud makeup. All right. So like too much or, just very bright or whatever, right? What else?
Crazy dyed. Oh, sorry, what?
Your hairstyle.
Yeah.
Hairstyle.
I was gonna say crazy dyed hair.
Yep. Can be crazy dyed hair.
Rhinestones on your jeans.
Rhinestones on jeans. Yeah, that can be attention grabbing.
Studded belts, bracelets, gold bracelets, gold belts. Gold grills.
Yeah. Okay.
I think
What about some these are a lot of things that we might not so much see, I don't think Hemo's going to show up next week with a big gold grill on. But what are some things that even in a church context that might be something where, okay, that is attention grabbing. Maybe the person isn't intending to everybody look at me. I mean, maybe they are, I don't know. But that can take the attention away from the people, and it is loud. It is attention grabbing.
A big watch.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like,
Giant
Yeah.
eyelashes.
Okay.
Like Tiffany eyelashes. Those were cute.
Caleb liked that one.
Can I go change my shirt?
this was related around just items or clothing in general.
It could be items. It could be clothing.
Oh, okay. I think for girls a tight dress.
Yeah. So I guess I'm looking for anything other than, like, if we're talking.
Okay, just loud.
Yeah. I mean, yes, that would be attention grabbing, but I mean, I'm talking about how things we wouldn't typically think of as like provocative or sexual or whatever.
Well, it could be like wearing like a dress that you should be wearing to a black tie wedding to church.
Yeah, you could be overdressed, right? I mean, if one of us showed up to preach in a tuxedo, that would be extremely weird. I mean, it really would be. And although we wouldn't think of that as immodest, I mean, if we're getting a biblical definition, that would be immodest. Because it would be attention grabbing. Even if we weren't necessarily trying to get, attention on ourselves.
hold it tight.
You mean suit?
No. He means tuxedo.
Okay, like for formal events.
Well, yeah. Well, even, I mean, you could have a place where, if someone shows up to the Bible distribution tomorrow in a 3-piece suit. I mean, again, I'm just like, I'm not trying to throw down, listen, I'm not putting rules down here. I'm just trying to get you guys to think of, as you sit in your seats and we try to discern, okay, what is biblical in terms of modesty? How can I, in my dress, not be drawing attention to myself ourselves, these are important things we want to think about. I'm not saying someone can't wear a suit. I'm not saying someone can't wear a watch. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying we want to be careful here that we're not drawing attention to ourselves by our dress. All right? I had a couple other things that were things that I feel like always did that. Eccentric hairstyles, so someone mentioned that, I think. Very bright lipstick. Excessive high heels. I mean, if you walk into a room and here's, this woman over there with these high heels that are just like, blinging, and everybody's, it's very noticeable. It's a very noticeable type of thing. All right? So there's obviously more that can be there. But the idea is we want to be avoiding being loud and attention-grabbing in what we're wearing. I think that's the idea that's here. Not with braided hair and gold or pearls or costly attire. I mean, the idea is, it's not you can't braid your hair. I mean, why can't you braid your hair? What is fundamentally sinful about braiding hair? Or what is fundamentally sinful? I mean, I know some women have, pearl rings for their wedding ring, or you have a gold ring for your wedding ring, or whatever it might be. And to some degree, that's a costly thing. So the idea is you don't want to be flashy. You don't want to be drawing attention after yourself. And here's the thing with it, particularly in regards to women, all right? Because if you go to the Proverbs and you start to look at this connection between loud and flashiness, it is directly connected in the Proverbs with the prostitute. That's exactly who it's directed to in the Proverbs. So I want to show you a couple of these passages. Proverbs chapter 7. Jeez. Okay, Proverbs 7. I'm going to start in verse 10. So this is talking about here a guy who is looking out his window. He sees a prostitute walking down the street. And it says, starting in verse 10, "Behold, the woman meets him dressed as a prostitute, wily of heart. She is loud and wayward. Her feet do not stay at home." So you see the connection there. Here's this woman. She's dressed as a prostitute. She's wily of heart. And that combination makes her loud and wayward, and her feet do not stay at home. Go back to chapter 6. I'm going to start in verse 23. "For the commandment is a lamp, and the teaching a light, and the reproof of discipline are the way of life, to preserve you from the evil woman." So here this woman comes in again. "From the smooth tongue of the adulteress. Do not desire her beauty in your heart, and do not let her capture you with her eyelashes." So you see this idea again, right? It's that she is seductive and her beauty is on display. It's loud, it's out there as an attempt to entice the man away. That's what she's trying to do. Her beauty is out on display. She's not meek. She's intending to be loud, and she's drawing people away by her beauty and capturing them with her eyelashes and all this kind of idea. Now go to Proverbs 11. Now this one isn't so much speaking of the prostitute, but I want you to get the idea here. So it says, Proverbs 11:22, "Like a gold ring in a pig's snout is a beautiful woman without discretion." A beautiful woman without discretion. Do you know what the word discreet means? What does the word discreet mean?
Subtle or not so noticeable.
Right. That's what it means. I mean, if you're trying to be discreet, you're trying to not reveal yourself. That's the idea. And he's saying here that like a gold ring in a pig's snout is a beautiful woman who is not discreet. She's not reserved. She's not hidden away. And whatever that is, it ain't a good thing, folks. A gold ring and a pig snout is not a good thing to be likened to that. And so this is important. This is intending to get the idea to us that both men and women, the most accentuating thing about you should not be what you're wearing. The thing that grabs attention about you should not be your clothing. It should be what he says in the next part of that verse. So let's go back there. Back to 1 Timothy. So here it is. So not with braided hair and gold or pearls or costly attire, but with what is proper for women who profess godliness with good works. So, ladies, your clothing should be the kind of thing which is fitting for a woman who professes godliness. I mean, it really is that sort of a simple kind of statement. If you profess godliness, then your dress, your clothing should present to the world godly woman. Like that's what the definition should be. The world looks at you, the church looks at you, they don't see loud, they don't see seductive, they don't even see good looking. They see godly woman. That's what they see. That's the banner over your head. So all the clothing that we're clothing ourselves with should be to help you be hidden away, discreet, modest, should be respectable, shouldn't be things that are taking respect away from you. You should be respected. I mean, you should be respected. Should be meek, should be gentle, should be helping to foster, just like it says in Peter, we'll look at a gentle and quiet spirit. And it should tell the world around you that you are a godly woman. That's what you want displayed. So let's look at 1 Peter and just pull out some of these other principles here. A lot of these are the same. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. But I want you to see, he kind of spells out for us in a little more detail here the distinction between external adorning and internal adorning. One of them you should have, and the other one he says, don't do this. So 1 Peter 3, starting in verse 3, do not let your adorning be external. The braiding of hair, the putting on of gold jewelry, or the clothing you wear. So the same kind of idea, all right? He's not wanting them to be loud. He's wanting the women to have their adorning not be about external things. Shouldn't be to grab attention. The most adorning thing about you should not be your clothing. It should be the internal stuff. So here he says this, but let your adorning be the hidden person of the heart, with the imperishable beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which in God's sight is very precious. So, but rather, not the external thing. You don't want that to be the most adorning thing about you, but you do want to be brightly adorned, brightly arrayed internally by the hidden person of the heart, by the godliness in the heart. I mean, again, just the thing that should be the most adorning to you is not your apparel. It should be the godly conduct. It should be who you are. And that's what your clothing should just help display that kind of thing. If people are drawn more towards the clothing than towards your godly conduct, then something has gone wrong. Something's gotten mixed up in the middle there. And Peter says here, what should be sought after? He talks about a gentle and quiet spirit. I mean, brethren, there's a reason why he connects the two. I mean, why does Peter connect modesty and clothing with a gentle and quiet spirit? It's because this, whatever is shown on the outside is what is in the heart. All right? If you have a gentle and quiet heart, then the clothing, the external apparel, will be gentle and quiet. But if you have a boastful, loud, seductive type of heart, well, then the external things are going to fall right in line with that. And so he's connecting them because they are connected. A meek, humble, gentle, modest spirit will show itself in meek, humble, gentle, modest clothing. Those two things go together. All right? So those are, I mean, obviously you can see there, other than our discussion about some particular things which might bring attention, this is very generic. This is very general. This is just, okay, biblical principles about modesty, hiding away all that can be displayed, not being loud in our apparel, right? These are very general kinds of concepts. And that's sort of the positive case that the Scripture makes. Here's what we should do. Here's how we should dress. Here's how we should display ourselves. But there is a negative case here, too, that I do want to make. I didn't want to make this the main thing, but it's an important one that we need to be concerned about. There are verses in the Bible which, although don't necessarily speak of modesty, they speak about leading others to sin and lust. And this is a very serious matter, both for men and for women. And this is part of this whole idea of modesty. So, 2 verses. Luke 17. We're going to read 2 sections here. Luke 17, 1 through 2. And he said to his disciples, this is Jesus, temptations to sin are sure to come, but woe to the one through whom they come. It would be better for him to have a millstone were hung around his neck, and he were cast into the sea, than he should cause one of these little ones to sin. So Jesus says temptation is going to come, but if you are responsible for bringing temptation upon another individual, it is better for you to have a big, giant, concrete stone tied around your head and you just cast yourself right out into the ocean. That's how serious Jesus is taking this. Matthew chapter 5. Matthew 5, 27 and 28. Jesus says, you have heard that it was said, you shall not commit adultery. But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lustful intent has already committed adultery with her in his heart. And listen, we could turn that right around and say any woman who looks on a man with lustful intent has committed adultery with him in her heart. The principle is exactly the same. It's not just that way for men. It's that way for both men and women. And brethren, the point is this. I'm not bringing these texts out to remove responsibility from the other party. I'm not intending to do that. A man needs to be able to walk in sexual purity and not be stumbling over himself. That is biblical. And women need to be able to do the same thing. So I'm not trying to remove here any responsibility on the other party, whether man or woman, about them being pure of heart as they walk around and live in this world. but it does put a pretty weighty responsibility on you and I, that we are responsible to not lead other people into temptation. I mean, you are responsible to some degree in that. And Jesus takes it dead serious. I mean, he says, if you lead someone into sin, does anybody here know what a millstone is?
Really heavy brick.
Yes. When they would gather all the grain in, they'd put it on one millstone, which was the bottom one, and they'd have a big giant other one that they would turn with these huge sticks, and it would grind up that grain. And these things were huge. And Jesus is saying, if you lead a person into sin, just tie one of those things around your neck and go throw yourself into the ocean. I mean, brethren, this is no joke. This is not a game. And this goes for both men and women. Whatever you are wearing, if it is going to lead someone to sin and temptation, that is a very serious matter with Jesus Christ. And maybe even a deeper question would be, and may God keep us from ever having this thing be in the heart of someone in this church. But I wouldn't put it past. I mean, brethren, we have sinful hearts. A deeper question would be, have you ever dressed in such a way that you actually want to be looked at? Maybe you would never say the words, I'm wanting to lead someone into lust, but you certainly like the attention. You certainly like being looked at, and you look at yourself in the mirror before you go out and you think to yourself, this looks really good. I look really good. I want to look good as I go out here to meet these people. That is a heart that is not right, brethren. If you have a desire to be noticed, if you have a desire to be sought after, I mean, brethren, this is exactly what Jesus Christ is wanting his people to not be involved in. You don't want to lead people into temptation like that. And it goes for both men and women. I mean, men, do you like the shirt because it shows off the nice biceps and the whatever and the gym work and whatever it is that you're doing? Women, do you like the pants and this particular shirt or that particular dress because it makes you feel good? It makes you look like a real woman? I mean, brethren, this is not a light matter. This is very, very serious. People being led into any kind of temptation because of your apparel is not a joke. Jesus Christ does not think that that is funny, and he takes it very serious. If you have a desire to look good and take people and lead them to want you, that is serious sin. That is a bad desire. And you need to be concerned to protect the heart of your fellow brothers and sisters. Men, you need to be concerned to protect the heart of the women in the church, that they wouldn't desire you. And women, you need to be concerned that you protect the heart of your brethren, that they don't desire you. If that's not your husband, he should not desire you. And you need to make sure that he doesn't. You need to be concerned that he does not. Song of Solomon 2 verse 7, do not stir up or awaken love until it pleases. Brethren, there is one place for that. There is one place for love to be stirred up and awakened, and it is in the marriage relationship between those two parties alone. That's it. And we need to be careful here, brethren, that we do not lead people into temptation. Now, finally, just briefly, I would prefer to not have to deal with any specifics. As I said in the beginning, I don't want this to become about keeping the list and keeping the rules. But the fact of the matter is this. I mean, Jesus said to the Pharisees, because of people's hardness of hearts, Moses allowed you to divorce your wives. And I recognize in a situation like this, people's hearts can be hard and they can be undiscerning. And so sometimes specifics may be necessary. I would prefer not to have to. I prefer we just go, brethren, let's dress modestly and honor the Lord. And then we all just go home. We wouldn't even have to do this Bible study, right? But that's not exactly how things work out in the life of the church. And so because of that, what I want to do is give some very generic guidelines where you all can be determined to take these things and apply them in your own lives. So, I'm going to try to be not only generic, but a bit discreet in my verbiage. Okay? So if this sounds weird, that's fine. You can think it sounds weird. I'm just trying to be mindful here about how I'm saying these things. So the first one would be this. You need to be concerned to cover any seductive body parts. And that means, ladies, all of your front area here and your chest area should be covered. Completely covered. That should not be visible to people in the church. All right? And while I'm at it, let me just make one more point here. This one will be a bit of a specific. But this is one of those things, as we talked about things that are distracting. I mean, look, I know all of you have it because my wife has it too, right? She has the dress that she bought years ago when she, she probably doesn't have any of those from when she was lost because that was a long time ago. But all of you probably still have some things that's like, oh, I really like that dress, or I really like that shirt, right? And it has this kind of thing on it. And so you want to salvage it. Okay, well, I'll wear a tank top underneath it, or I'll wear a shirt underneath it. But listen, let me tell you very clearly, there is nothing more dumb that can be done than to wear a dress that has a cut and a flesh-colored shirt underneath it. That is so unnecessary and ridiculous. I mean, all that's going to do is draw attention right to that area of your dress, of your body. Because it doesn't look any different as if you didn't have anything there. So if you're going to wear something like that and you want to salvage it, which is fine. I mean, we all aren't millionaires. We can't all go buy, complete new wardrobes. So if you want to salvage something and you want to wear something underneath it that's going to cover that area, well then wear something there that's going to cover it and isn't going to draw attention to it. All right? Secondly, make sure that you hide whatever clothing that you are wearing under your main clothing. All right? Anything you're wearing underneath your main clothes, any undergarments should not be visible. Okay? People should not be able to see whatever clothing is under the external clothing. Are you all tracking with me on this? Okay. All right? It's a massive distraction, brethren. And it's just a matter of not caring to be aware. I mean, that's really all it is. It's just not caring to be aware. And that's not really an acceptable thing in the life of the church. These are the two areas where people typically have the most questions. The first one is in regards to tightness. All right? And I guess all I'll say about this is this. Your clothing should be loose enough that your body is left to the imagination. People should not be able to know what your body looks like, even though you have clothes on. I mean, this is a very generic, general principle. Both men and women, your pants and your shirts should leave something to the imagination of the people that are around you. Length. This is the other one that is typically the main question. Length of dresses or length of shorts. And listen, all I'll say about this is this. You all know the world standard. What is it?
Not that great.
Well, that's true, but what is it?
Like fingertip.
Okay, if the world is going to say fingertip length, the lost people are going to say that. lost people are going to say fingertip length, then brethren, we need to consider what it would be for godly people to dress in such a way that we don't look like the worldly people out there, right? There should be a big distinction between what the world says and what the people in the church look like. I mean, really, you just ask yourself the question, both men and women. You ask the question, how much of your legs do you want showing to the brethren and the sisters in the church? How much? I mean, that's really what this is about. If you're going to wear a dress, you better ask yourself the question, do I want this much of my legs displayed to all my brothers? Right? I mean, this is the way, if you think about it in this light, these things become pretty self-explanatory. If you're getting dressed before you're leaving the house to go to church, you're trying not to lead your brethren to stumble, and you're trying to hide your body away for your spouse. Whatever you're wearing, you ask yourself, do I want this much of my legs showing to my brethren in the church? Or vice versa, do I want this much of my legs showing if I'm wearing short shorts or whatever to all the other ladies in the church? I mean, you all can operate in that kind of realm. And again, this last principle would be that your clothing should display meekness and reverence. It should not be flashy. You should not be drawing attention to yourself. All right? And lastly, I'll say this. I mean, the fact of the matter is, you all know this. We need to undo the work that the culture has done on us. I mean, the culture has shaped our mind to such a degree to think that this is modest and that is not. And it is so far away from the Bible. And we got to undo all that. We got to undo the culture's idea of what is and what is not modest. And not only that, we even need to undo our idea of what is and is not beautiful, what does and does not look good. Because I know this, in our lost days, all of us thought certain things looked good. And as a lost man, certain things did look good. And as a lost woman, certain things did look good. But brethren, as we come into the church, that doesn't look good anymore. It doesn't. I mean, what is, you can ask any man in here, any woman in here, you can ask any man in here, what do they want to see? They want to see a woman who is beautiful and reverent. They don't want to see a woman who's seductive and trying to grab attention and looking, listen, these words, beautiful and sexy, are not synonymous. They're not the same thing. And godly men want beautiful women. They want women who are reverent, who are holy, who are hidden away for their husbands. They don't want women who look like the world looks. And it's the same way for men. Women, you should want a man who's not flashy, who's not trying to grab attention. We got to be undoing the culture's messing with our minds on that. And as you all determine in your own homes, whether with your husband or if you're single, particulars about your clothing and what you should wear, the question should not be, what can I get away with? Right? If the question is, can I wear this? And you're just trying to see where the line is, that is not a good attitude. Many Christians, not just in this area of modesty, but this is one of the areas, but many Christians live in the realm of trying to ask, what am I allowed to do, rather than what ought I to do? They live like that in all kinds of areas, and this is a bad place to live in that realm. If you're trying to ask yourself, what am I allowed to do, rather than what would be best for me to do, well, then you're going to always be right there on that line. We should be asking what best displays these realities of respectability, of modesty, of reverential, not trying to draw attention to myself. We should be asking what best displays those kinds of things. I I mean, why try to operate in a realm where you are always trying to find where the line is? I mean, that's what my 4-year-old does. He's always trying to, okay, is it here? Is it there? Is it over here? I mean, that's a heart of rebellion, brethren. We shouldn't live like that. I mean, we need to be determined to display godliness in our clothing, to display godliness in our dress. And you will not only, if you do it, you're not going to just honor Christ. You're going to help keep others from temptation, from being distracted. And those are both very good things. Those are things that God is honored in when we live like that. So as you guys seek to determine some of these details in your life, I mean, like I said, I wanted to just give some general principles for you all to try to operate in. And look, well, I guess one last thing would be this. For those of you who are married, if there are areas that need to be adjusted in your homes, I mean, one thing for me that I realized early on as I was trying to deal with this with my wife was, look, I'm just going to have to dish out money. I mean, it just is what it is. Like, new clothes. Here comes, $200, $300, $400. Because I'm just we're just determined to do this. And if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. And you have got to be determined that if you're going to dress in a godly way, and you find, okay, here's my closet, I had this many clothes, and now I have this many, right? That's okay. Now, just be willing to go, all right, Lord, I'm willing to walk in godliness. Let me now, fill this with things that are honoring to Christ. I mean, we just got to be willing to do that, brethren. We just got to be willing to do it and not have excuses come in and keep us from it. So, I don't know if anybody has any questions or any additional thoughts,
I have a thought.
Yeah.
What about when you're pregnant?
Yeah. So, well, obviously, to some degree, it becomes more difficult, right? If, as a woman gets pregnant, and as she gets more and more pregnant, her body is going to grow, all right? And I guess all I can say would be this. There has to be some place here where we recognize that situation and have a bit more grace in the matter. But we also have to say to ourselves, if these are principles that are biblical and they're godly, why would we be willing to remove them in some circumstance, right? I'm not saying that there's ways that we might have to work around it or have like some kind of additional, okay, here's what I have to do here. I'm just saying if this is biblical, which I've tried to refrain from making any laws and any, dictatorial statements. I'm just trying to give you guys biblical principles. But if these are biblical principles and this seems godly, then we need to be willing to apply it in all circumstances. And if that means, okay, here I am, I'm pregnant, all the stuff that I could wear 2 months ago, I can't wear anymore, then we just got to be determined to go, okay, I got to buy some other things that I can wear at this period of time. Because if we're going to remove now the standards of godliness for a certain period of time, it seems to me capricious. It seems to me we're just saying, yeah, that's godliness, but I'm not really determined to do it in this particular time period. And I recognize there's difficulty in that. I mean, we're going to come in here to another season where my wife's going to be pregnant, and some of the things, well, she is, but some of the things that she wears now she may not be able to wear at that time, and I may have to either buy some other things or, I know she has got plenty of stuff in that closet that she can wear. So if there are things that she can't wear during that period of time, I know there are other things that she can wear. And so there may have to be a change in style, a change in wardrobe. But whatever it is, we don't want to remove the principles for the sake of convenience. We just can't do that. And I'll close with this and then we'll pray. I preached on this some time back about speaking the truth in love. And this is an area for us where we have got to be determined to help one another. Ladies, if one of your sisters is wearing something that you find to be inappropriate, then you need to, in love, you don't need to be mean, you need to be harsh with them, but you need to, in love, say, sister, I don't think that that is befitting of you. I know you to be a godly woman, and that doesn't display that. And I want people to see you as a godly woman. Like, you have got to be willing to tell one another that. And men, same thing. If there's something that one of us is wearing that seems flashy or is drawing attention or may just be whatever, however you might see it as immodest, I mean, you should tell one another that. And we need to be determined to help each other. This is not a matter of putting one another down. This is a matter of helping spur one another on to love and to good works. And so as a church, we don't want to be thin-skinned. I mean, it doesn't mean you need to be rude with one another. It just means we need to be willing to take exhortation from one another, to take encouragement from one another. So I want you all to be determined to do that. All right?